Now is Fiza Qureshi, the Chief Executive of Migrants' Rights Network, who is in Woking in Surrey. Very good morning to you. I'd just like to start by asking you, are there any circumstances or any set of conditions under which you would approve of the Rwanda plan?
I don't think there are any, unfortunately. We are really concerned that this Rwanda bill is going to potentially be a blueprint for further treaties, further legislation to make other countries deemed safe. So we're really worried that schemes like this are being pursued. You've already talked about the exorbitant cost that's been put in place, that there's an additional extra 50 million that is to follow. So it's not going to be 240, it's going to be 290 million, possibly at the end of the scheme, if there is an end. And there's been no transparency or oversight on what the additional costs are going for or towards, and what the ceiling will be. I think what we are disappointed that the main criticism has been around the money that's being thrown at it, and not that it is morally wrong, it lacks compassion, and it's trying to circumvent human rights legislation.
And is your issue particular to the fact that it is Rwanda? Because it's not novel, is it, a country using a third country to process their asylum claims?
I mean, as you kind of detailed already, it's gone through 3 courts, and the Supreme Court, the highest court in the UK, has deemed the country unsafe. I think we would be opposed whether it was any other third country. And the point being is that the UK has its own moral obligation and duty to provide refugee protection and support to those who are seeking sanctuary. And we really can't derogate that and pass that on to other countries to do what is meant to be our duty. So I don't think we would be opposed whatever country was proposed next.
What do you think of the government's proposal to remove the right of asylum seekers to appeal the decision?
I mean, this is appalling, again, circumventing human rights legislation, people's rights to have appeals. And appeals are an important part of the asylum process. What you find is many people will get their first kind of asylum application refused, and then actually get it granted on appeal. So the appeal process is such a huge part, sadly, because the initial decisions tend to be wrong. And that appeal process has to be available to people, and it has to be available in country so that they're still in the UK when that appeals process is taking place.
Well, it is such a huge process, as you described, that it's also created a massive backlog, hasn't it? And how do you propose the government deals with the backlog? What's the alternative?
I mean, we aren't. We're still unclear as to why they aren't processing and dealing with the backlog. That investment could have been put into making that process, that backlog, more efficient, but really about making sure that the decisions and the assessment of those asylum claims are just, based on equality, and those decisions aren't being rushed through. What we would really have liked was an investment in schemes like the Ukrainian humanitarian scheme, where people are able to come into the UK through safe routes, that there is a process, and they're not kind of left with this threat of Rwanda hanging over them. We'd really like the investment to be placed in kind of accommodation, asylum accommodation, which is obviously now we've got money being thrown at barracks and barges, and instead of going to the local authorities so that they can help alleviate, people being left homeless and on the streets this winter.
And so how far do you think, sorry for interrupting, that £290 million, if it were to be spent here, how far could it go, do you think, in helping to alleviate the problems with the system?
I mean, I'm not an economist, and I don't know how much it would do, but it would go some way. Local authorities have been desperate and calling for better investment and more investment from central government for its housing crisis, and that housing crisis for everyone, not just for refugees and asylum seekers. But I don't think the problem is alleviated by giving that money to another country to basically deal with our with asylum seekers who are coming to the UK.
All right. Thank you very much indeed for your time on Sky News this morning.